So, Mike, thank you so
Sure.
much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
What was this sword fighting comedy troupe? Just give me a little context of what that is.
It's sword fighting comedy troupe. Yes, exactly what it sounds like. We sword fought and we told jokes. We put it together. It's two things I really like to do. So I learned how to sword fight for the stage back in college. My college was a big. It did two things. It did a lot of musical theater and a lot of Shakespeare, and I couldn't sing, and so I was trying to get into the Shakespeare stuff. And one day this guy showed up, and he's like, "Hey, do you want to learn how to sword fight?" And I was like, "Yeah, I want to learn how to sword fight." And so I learned what I call like the Western style martial arts: rapier, dagger, case of rapier, which is sword in each hand, broadsword, just anything, any sword I get my hand on. And when I was down in Florida, I did a lot of event work, and there was a lot of pirate themed event work. And it's what I did for when I wasn't working for like Universal or Disney or whatever, is how I made extra income. And I was like, they should have a sword fighting troupe. Why is in the event capital of the country, is there no, in Florida, no pirate sword fighting troupe floating around? And so I basically just, there was a big hotel that was doing like their own mini theme park in their hotel. They would do this big summer fest. And I basically went and said, "Hey, I've got this sword fighting troupe. We tell jokes and we sword fight, and you're doing a pirate themed event. You should totally have us." And I had no troupe, no sword fighting group, nothing. And they said, "You're hired." I said, "Great." So I turned to my friend and said, "Guys, we got like 2 weeks to come up with something." And we did, and that just launched us. And we just went all through the southeast, doing these sword fighting shows. And sometimes it was just two of us, sometimes it was eight of us. And then eventually we sort of crescendoed at Walt Disney World, where we did their Pirates and Princesses event. And we were just that. We were just this band of misfits in Disney, swinging steel swords and just cracking jokes. And it was a hit. The audience really, really liked us because we were dumb as a box of rocks. And that was our characters. We were idiots until we were time to be super intelligent, if that makes any sort of sense.
Well, you're just hitting everything that I love in entertainment, which is like pointless action and lots of jokes, but also a little bit of intellectualism.
Yes, that's exactly. It was just fun, and it was just all for the audience. It was for the kids. It was for the adults got a kick out of it, but it was basically just family entertainment. Mm-hmm. And it's great.
What was the name of that troupe, if you don't mind me asking?
It was under the company called Mayhem Productions, and then we called it the Skull and Bones Sword Fighting Show. And it was two brothers that traveled the world, dueling to the death to prove who's the greatest swordsman.
Oh, nice. Yeah. That almost would make a really good film.
I think it probably would.
So then what was the transition to film and television? Or it sounds like you were kind of working in that world already.
Yeah, in Orlando, I was auditioning for commercials, and every once in a while a movie would roll in and I would audition for that. I really didn't understand much about the film world. I was really just entrenched in the live show and the theater. And someone had mentioned to me, "Hey, with your sword fighting background and your acting background, you should look into stunt acting." And I didn't even know what that was. So a friend of mine, she had been doing film, and she was the one who made the recommendation. She gave me a stunt coordinator's name in New Orleans. And I called and I was like, "Hey, I'm kind of interested in this. I'm not know much about it, and I'd love to meet you." So he said, "Come on out." I flew out, we met, and then a week later he gave me a job, and I had my first job on a Disney movie called Stuck in the Suburbs, I think. And I did stunt work that day. And the job was I ran out of the van was pulling away, and I ran out of the van, and I was like, "Wait, stop!" And it stopped and backed into me on accident. And that was my introduction into the film world, just getting hit by a minivan. And I was like,
"There's worse ways to get into the film world, for sure."
Like, I love this stuff. I'm gonna keep doing this, and so I did.
Nice. And so was there any like memories from that stunt career that really, besides your obviously first getting hit by minivan, that really stand out as being like something you'll tell at a cocktail party or something?
Oh my God. Suddenly everything just goes blank.
Oh, I bet.
So what I love about the stunt community is there really there's this great sense of, it really is a community. It's a brotherhood, it's a sisterhood. And it's everything is, if I think about every movie, there's something about every movie that I'm like, man, this is why I'm doing this. Like I'm on Looper and I'm working with Joseph Nick, and I'm Joseph Gordon-Levitt's double, and we're talking about scenes, and I step back and I'm like, here I am with like this A-list celebrity, and we're talking about the scene, and I'm watching Ryan Johnson work and set his shots up, who will go on to direct Star Wars, and I'm just like, man, like I can't believe like I'm doing this. It's such a dream, and every time I was in doing a stunt, I was always watching the camera crew and the director, because I was just taking mental notes, which just then helped me get behind the camera and do the directing.
I'm sure it's become very valuable, not only your performance and acting work, but also your stunt work when you started directing and producing yourself. So what was the
Absolutely.
first project? Was it Falling in Love Again? Was that the first feature you did outside of shorts?
The first feature I did was Jake's Road. It was
Jake's Road. Oh,
Jake's
okay,
Road, aka Death Hunt. And so I did a short film before that called A Good Night, and it was based off a feature idea. We just did this short, and I really did the short just to see if I could do the feature. And after I did the short, I jumped right into a feature film. And Falling in Love Again was a few years down the road with Dan Garcia. And actually, Dan and I, who I still work with today, he's my partner. He was the producer on Jake's Road.
How have those skills of being in front of the camera, of stunt work and acting and performance really influenced how you approach the producing and directing?
It helps me approach the directing, because I find that I'm really an actor's director. So like I like to think, I like to believe that I have the ability to just sort of, because I understand what an actor is going through, you know, from a seasoned actor to just the newbie on set. And so I can usually understand what they're feeling and what they're thinking, and just communicate with them in a way that is not super technical. Like I work with some directors who are just all about the shot, and they're all about the technical aspect of it. And as an actor, you're sort of left drifting in the wind, not really knowing what you're supposed to be doing. And actors need a little bit of feedback. They need a little direction, just so they can understand the context of the scene. And so I guess I sympathize with that. So whenever I'm on set, I like to talk with my actors and communicate and break it all down for them. And I'll go from everything from just the small nuances of the emotion all the way to the technical side. And then I think that I feel it helps get everybody where they need to go from A to B. And it doesn't just help the actor though, because when I'm communicating that with them, my DP is there, and everyone who's right behind the camera is there. So we all can generally come to the same understanding of where this shot is going, and so where the scene is going, so where the movie is going. If that makes sense.
Does make. I mean, I'm on Inside Baseball because I produce and direct stuff myself.
Oh, okay.
So it makes a lot of sense to me. And I find that when I produce and direct my own stuff, because I'm such a fan of fight choreography and action scenes, I always find an excuse to sneak it into all my projects.
Yeah.
Do you do that as well on your end, considering you come from that world?
I find a little bit of the reverse, because I tend to work with actors, and if we don't have time, and in the independent film world, you don't always have time to like really get into the fight or get into that. So I find that if there's some sort of action in it, but the scene doesn't need it, I'll pull the action to see if the scene works without the action.
Oh,
because
interesting.
Because you know, like, and I'm not just talking like a slap. Like sometimes someone's yelling, they slap. That's different. I'm talking like, is there a fight? Like, well, why are the characters fighting? Like, I'll approach everything from a story point of view, from the character point of view. I'm like, well, they don't need to fight. Can this resolve without some sort of physical violence? And if the answer is yes, and it's better for it, then I'll tend to lean that way. However, if it is violent and they do need that violence and they do need that action, I will just go really far into it to make it as just quick and ugly and dirty and violent as I possibly can. So now that I'm saying this out loud to you, maybe what's going on is that if I can't lean into it the way I want to lean into it, I'd rather remove it and make the scene stronger, as opposed to relying on the action, or not the action, but a physical confrontation. So
yeah, that's a fascinating approach. And honestly, I kind of wish more directors would approach material in that way, as in, just because it's on the page doesn't necessarily mean that's what's going to end up with the performance.
Right.
And I personally, as a fan of all this stuff, I love to see that kind of approach. But I'm sure that it also affects how you approach television, right? Because your deadlines are faster and there's a lot more
Yeah.
shooting you have to do. So does that affect
Mhm.
also how you approach scenes?
Yeah, so we're doing a television show called A House Divided right now, which is, it is a television show, but it's more like an 8-hour movie,
Hmm.
because the first scene connects to the last scene, and the through line is 100% through. It's not episodic in the sense that each episode you get like the beginning, the middle, and the conclusion where it all wraps up nice and neatly. It's not like that. It's much more in tune with today's television. So we do film really, really quickly, which is why we have to really pick our marks, like when we're bringing in the stunt doubles, when we're bringing in the action and things of that nature. So we're 100% prepared, because I don't always have time to teach the actor how to do the fight, and every actor wants to do their own fight.
I bet. I bet.
And I don't blame them. I don't blame it. It looks so much better when the actors do the fight. It really does. And a lot of times they'll surprise me. I'm like, well, we're thinking this, this, and this, and they'll just do it. And I'm like, we should have rolled on that. So let's do it again.
Yeah, well, tell me a little bit about A House Divided, because it's now in season 3, correct?
Yes, it's the third season's out, and we just released our fourth season.
Oh wow,
And
okay.
yeah. Oh no, I'm
Okay.
sorry. We just finished our fourth
Finished.
season. We're in the editing process. Yeah.
So tell me how that show came about.
That is the brainchild of my producing partner, Dan Garcia. And I think it just came about to him in like a fever dream of some sort. And something had been stewing in the back of his head, and he wanted to make his own. He says like his own sort of dynasty sort of show. But
Oh, that's the vibes I get from. I was only able to watch the trailers, but I was like, this totally seems like Dynasty or Dallas or.
It's got that drama, but what happened was that we rolled off of Bronx SIU, which was successful, and we're coming into it, and he's telling me the plot lines, and I'm like, Dan, you're not making Dynasty, you're making The Godfather. You just don't know it yet. And he kind of laughed, but sure enough, that's exactly what we're making. So what we've done is we've taken this sort of dramatic TV show about this family, which is just falling apart left and right. It's this very rich, influential family that just cannot keep it together, and they just keep doing one horrible thing after another. Like they try to cover it up and cover it up and cover it up, and the next thing you know, bodies start hitting the floor. People are double, triple, quadruple dealing, and now it's a crime family. It just is. They don't. Except what's interesting is that they don't realize that they're a crime family yet. But the audience, if the audience has been with us since season 1, they're like, oh yeah, it's like the birth. It's like the birth of this mafia family essentially, and it's pretty cool.
So what can fans expect coming into season 4 then, as opposed to the previous ones?
Oh my God. I mean, because season 3 ended, it just was so wild. Season 4 is really about the repercussions of everything that's happened through season 1 through 3. And it's basically the bill is coming due and people are paying, and no one is getting out unscathed. The family is, I think, they're all at odds. The core family, the father, the children, they're all at odds with each other now. They're all making their own deals, and the body count is getting up there. And even because I'm a fan of the show, like I'll edit it, I'll direct it, and I'll edit it. I'm like, I wonder what's going to happen. Even Dan and I even talk about plots yet to come. But we never we don't know what's going to happen until it happens. So it's interesting to be a fan of the show that I'm working on. It makes me want it to be even better.
But I feel like if you can enjoy, if you're not happy with what you're working on, that the audience is going to feel it. So if you don't love what you do, I mean, that's almost the first bar you have to hit with this kind of production. But
100%.
So do you have like a finite ending that you know of, or is it more like you kind of a hazy direction it's going in?
No. So Dan gets the ultimate word on what happens, and during the directing process, I'll adjust character plot lines or scenes based off conversations that we've had. There's been a few times he usually writes everything, but I've written a few scenes to just sort of change the course here and there. I don't know what's going to happen. Like I know what I want to have happen as a fan,
Hmm.
but I'm afraid to talk about it because I don't want that to be like, oh, the director producer said this. I don't want it
Oh,
to come
totally
across as
understand. I
like
mean, I
that.
was I was so blown away when Vince Gilligan said how few of those storylines they actually knew where they were going to go at the beginning of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. I was like,
Oh yeah.
wow, it just feels like it was so tightly wound. So I feel like that's one of those things that as a creator, like the mystery for yourself is almost why it's intriguing for the audience too.
Yeah, I think what this great sort of thing starts happening where you have an idea where you want your story to go, but then as you write it, you know, the story starts taking on a little bit of a life on its own, and sometimes and so you kind of go with that, and then the actors grab it and they take it somewhere, and then the director will come in and and I'll go, well, you know, yes, and this, and so then all these little layers get put on. So then when you go back and go, well, that's not exactly where I thought it was going, but I like that direction even better. So then when you go back to rewrite the next season, you know, you just have to build on top of that.
And so, was there any actors who you brought on for A House Divided that like completely surprised you, and then, or maybe completely changed the direction of a character?
Um, Geez, I would say every character that we brought on gave me more than I was expecting, but hit all the marks. We brought on an actor to play. He started out as just a fantasy in one of the characters' minds. She was having a mental breakdown, so she had this fantasy about this guy. But I liked his performance so much, and we liked the storyline so much. We brought him back as a real person in the following season to show or to show that this character, while she was having mental breakdown, there was touches of lucidity, and this person that she met was one aspect of that lucid moment that she had in a fever dream. Does that, you know, if there's a performance or an actor there that's really just kicking butt, I'll work with it to see if we can bring him back.
I mean, that's also what I always try to explain to actors who I work with, whatever, is that there's no small roles, because you never know. Just because it seems small in the whole production, if you deliver and you do a wonderful job, you never know, you might, you know, be
Yeah.
you know, written in more and more and become a main character or whatever.
And you never know. And I mean, sometimes like as an actor, I'm like, yeah, okay, there are no small roles, but you know, I'm just asking if you want fries. So I'm pretty sure
Yeah,
like
that's a pretty small role.
that's a pretty small role. But I've met a lot of great actors that have come in for the one-liners and stuff. I'm like, man, I wish we had something more for you, but we just don't. You know, this is sort of where we're at. But
I do
think
feel like producing and directing, though, you'd get after being a performer, you get a lot of respect for both sides of it, where you're like, I need you to be as good as you are in this one line. And like, if we have a good working relationship, who knows? Like, I'll keep coming back to my pool of talent to keep working with somebody.
100%. I agree with you. Yeah, 100%.
So what do you have coming up after this? So season 4, it seems like this probably is then your A House Divided is going to be your main focus for the next few years.
So it would be nice, you know, I would like to get a couple more seasons out of this. Right now we're going to get into the editing world, which means I'm probably going to drop off the face of the planet for a little while to help with the edits. But we've got personally, my girlfriend, Sarah Fisher, and I, we just finished a movie called Christmas for Sale. She produced it and I directed it. And it's going to be a nice, lighthearted, no one dying comedy about
no
Christmas
crime families in this one.
No crime families. Okay. Christmas and falling in love. And then I have another family film that I'm trying to get off the ground called Turtle Bay, which is, again, just a nice, lighthearted family movie about a family that's struggling to save their little small town. But it's wrapped up in a nice, cute, fun, exciting way. That one does have sword fighting pirates in it, though. So that'll be a winner. And then I just finished doing, writing what I'm hoping to turn into another small series about basically crime bosses in Reno. And that one's a little grittier, a little darker, with a bit of tongue-in-cheek sort of attitude about it. So those are the things that I'm looking down the road on, and we'll see what really kicks off and what doesn't.
So do you like the challenge of trying different genres like comedy, action, drama?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Because I think that comes from doing theater. You know, I was never pinned into one thing. You know, like if it was a drama, I was doing drama. If there was a comedy, I was doing comedy. If it was pratfalls and spit takes, that's where I was. If it was real subtle, that's where I was. So I don't like just doing the one thing. I want to do it all. I mean, it's something that,
Any
yeah.
genres or anything that you haven't done yet that you'd be dying to get your
You
hands on?
know, what's really crazy is as a stunt, I have not had a chance to get a big action film yet.
Mhm.
And I'm just chomping at the bit to get that big action film. And I've had some opportunities, but honestly, it was just the budget wasn't realistic for what the action was. And there's one thing that I know is that you want the good action, you got to get the good
Yeah.
performers, and that costs money.
Yeah, unfortunately, action is one of those genres that it lends itself to a bigger budget. Not to say
It,
it has to always be there, but
yeah,
definitely lends itself to it.
you just need it. You need the support, because I mean
Mhm.
the stunt world is pretty much got 100% injury rate.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
and it's not that people have to get injured, but it's just you're only as good as your last take in a stunt. You know,
Mhm.
you could do that punch 100 times, and that 101st, you're who knows.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, it's funny because what I hear from a lot of stunt people are uh, westerns and pirate movies, which are the it sounds like you have the pirates covered, but
yeah.
any interest in ever doing like a western or anything?
Oh man, a good western, that would be so great.
I
Oh man.
swear that's something in the stunt community that like they're almost like all fans of westerns. There's something
That-
about it.
well, you know what it is? I think it's like truly like an American genre,
Hmm.
that my farm's being sold out from underneath me, so I got to go into town and make it right, pull the gut.
Yeah, I mean, it does
Um,
lend itself to some good drama, but I think my favorite action movies tend to be like westerns or have like even if it's a western noir or whatever.
oh, but Silverado.
Yeah.
Have you seen that one?
Oh,
I
of
mean,
course, yeah.
guilty pleasure movie
I mean, I'm
all
a
the time.
child of the 80s, so of course that was like
Okay,
one of
yeah,
my favorite growing up.
me
Um,
too.
so any influences that you think for when you're, stepping behind the camera to direct, is there people that like, even if you're unconsciously pulling from, is there anybody you'd like
I
to give a shout out to?
I think uh, Clint Eastwood is someone that always comes to mind, and Ron Howard, and that's because so many influences, so many. But I tend to look at Clint Eastwood a lot because when I watch his movies, I feel that he's not trying to do anything with the camera that's too distracting. He's really just sort of placing the camera, and he says, "Here's the story. Let's just tell the story. Let's focus on the story here." And his shots to me are, I use the word simple, but I know they're not simple. I just mean it's just I get some good, honest storytelling from him. But then I love like Robert Rodriguez and Guy Ritchie, like
Hmm.
the way he's visually telling his story, and Edgar Wright. Man, that guy is
Yeah,
just on another level. I think I admire everybody, bits
sure.
and pieces of everybody for different reasons. And I could probably, if we just start naming directors, I could be like, oh, I like him for this reason, I like him for that reason. Um,
Well, I think it's interesting you identified Clint Eastwood, who is very naturalistic. Like you said, how you approach working with your actors sounds like you kind of have the Clint Eastwood school because he puts a lot of his faith in the performance of the actors,
yeah,
which I think again, I wish more directors would kind of take that approach. Although then there's like the Edgar Wrights who are so stylized. I mean, I could only wish to be able to be technically as skilled as somebody like
he's
Edgar Wright.
brilliant with some of his shots, and his shots are great in the edit because you can
Mhm.
tell he's editing in his head and like I'm gonna go from here to here to here, and this is gonna be the joke, the 1, 2, 3 in his edits, and it's great.
Well, do you find it challenging to edit your own projects that you're directing?
Not as much as I used to. I used to find it pretty challenging, because I'm really searching for like the best performance and then the best shot sort of simultaneously, and they don't always match up.
Mhm.
And when I'm directing, there are times where I'm just thinking as an artist. I'm like, just go for it. Just let's live in the moment. And there's times where I'm thinking like an editor. I'm like, well, I'm gonna go here, and I think I'm gonna go there. And then inevitably, when I get into the editing room, the shot where I'm like, this is gonna be the perfect edit shot. I'm gonna go here, and I'm gonna do this. I'm like, oh no, that that's not what I want. I realize I think I need to reverse these things in the edit and things like that. So so what ends up happening is the editing just sort of becomes another way to tell the story, as opposed to just sticking with line by line of the script of the edit. I really want to find the best story in it.
And did you go to any like schooling for editing, or was it really just trial by fire? You threw
It was
yourself at
trial
it.
by fire. It was trial by fire.
Nice.
It was back with Jake's Road started, and we hired an editor, and I was trying to communicate with him what I was looking for. And I think it had to do with it. You know, I was so green. I'm still green. I'm still learning. But I couldn't quite communicate with him what I was looking for.
Mhm.
And so I got some scenes back, and they were a little flat. And not that he wasn't a good actor, a good editor. I knew that I had shot ways to make the scenes look better. So I
Mhm.
just taught myself how to get into it and find the shots and scenes that I wanted. And that's where I learned how you could take one scene, but if you have enough reactions and dialogue going on, you can build the scene to give you the tone that you want, even if necess- you didn't necessarily shoot it with that intention. Does
Mhm.
that make
Oh,
sense?
for sure.
Yeah,
I mean, I always call the editors the second director. So whether
100%.
it's yourself directing it, it's the idea of what did you what did, it doesn't matter what you thought you got on camera. Like when you sit down and actually have the footage, that is truly like you can
That's where you got it.
make or break a film. Yeah. So
100%.
so
Yeah.
when you started out, was that something you like had an ambition to do, thinking like, you know what, I think I am going to be a producer, director, editor, or did it kind of just had a necessity and then you felt like you had a
Yeah,
joy out of it?
it was just necessity, and then I found out that I really kind of liked it,
Hmm.
and then I'm like, I then at some point, and I also get nervous now. I'm like, well, what if they don't edit the scene the way that I know it can be done? So I'm constantly conflicted with my ego of like I can do a really good job,
Yeah.
but wanting to see what the editor comes back with because I love being surprised. Like, give me something, I don't want to
Yeah.
have to go back and like retouch it. Like, what did you find that I didn't see that's in there?
Hmm.
And so there's a little back and forth like that. I like the collaborative aspect of film.
Hmm.
So it's always nice to get somebody else's sort of opinion or thought on it.
Yeah, I mean, I found that as much as I do enjoy editing, I almost prefer having that extra set of eyes, that extra
Yeah.
perspective to really enhance the project. Yet
Bounce your
budgets,
ideas off of.
yeah, but budgets keep getting lower and lower. So I find myself having to step into these roles.
Yeah.
And like, as you said, though, you end up stepping into them and then you realize not only do I have some abilities in this, there's so many different joys and you know,
Yeah.
parts of production that are suddenly, I feel like it made me better at my craft across the board. Do you
It
think
does.
the editing has influenced how you direct?
I was just going to ask you the same
Oh,
question.
oh,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, I would say hands down. It totally does. It totally does. And it helps me in weird ways when like suddenly if I've gotten to a moment where I realize I'm out of town, I can't get out of town, out of time, can't get the extra shot that I know that I sort of need. Then I kind of go back through everything I shot and I can go, oh, well, I can clip it together here, 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 and here. And I tend to, I like to, I tend to, I don't say overshoot, but I like to really get as much of a 360 environment when I shoot to just get all sorts of angles. Unless I'm going for that oneer or that real stylized stuff. If I'm covering a scene, I really want to hose it down because I like the ability in the edit room to go anywhere I want with the story.
Mhm.
And I find that I tend to shoot with that in mind. Um,
And when you're shooting at House Divided, are you doing a multicam or is it just a single cam
we're usually two
approach?
cameras. Usually two cameras. Sometimes we'll go up to three, and sometimes we'll drop down to one, just depending on the shot.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we're almost out of time here, but is there anything that you wanted to talk about today that I maybe missed or left off?
No, check out A House Divided. You can find it on Amazon or All Black. And yeah, I don't know, just go enjoy it.